I feel very comfortable talking to family members. So I like to just say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir rahim. Uh, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad, to whom the Quran was revealed, is his last prophet. I mean, um, you mentioned technical difficulties. Well, we've had some here. Last night, I don't know if it was a snowstorm or what, but my internet went out. So we are now using our backup system, our hotspot, and I wasn't certain how well that would work, but obviously it's working, and we thank Allah. In terms of the other members of our team, we had scheduled our meetings to be back to back this morning, and there was a scheduling snafu, and it turns out that the meetings are uh, exactly the same time. So I'm here, and Sister Coral and some of our other Muslim Health Consortium team members are on the other talim at this very moment. So, alhamdulillah, we could divide it up like that. We indeed have been working in this vineyard for actually 9 or 10 months now, ever since COVID hit. Our team organized that very month, that very week, and we have been working since then. Thank Allah. And it has been quite a journey. Seeing what COVID has been doing, not only to individuals, but to our society, our community, and our democracy. In fact, we will address it like that. There's so many angles that we could look at COVID that we are going to look at it from different points of view. And then we will get into it in more detail and eventually open up for questions. But there's a real reason why the Biden-Harris administration has chosen COVID as its number one problem to address. It's the biggest threat facing our country today. Not anything else, it's COVID. And if this isn't gotten under control, everything else, is up for grabs. That's one point of view. And the question is, why is COVID so bad? We've had flu and illnesses and problems and medical issues in the past, but what is unique about this? Why is COVID, SARS-CoV-2 virus, such a problem? And well, let's address that for a moment. The first thing is it represents the worst case scenario. Number one, it's invisible. It's an invisible virus. Number two, it's spread as an aerosol. Just talking now, there are aerosols coming out of my mouth, hitting the screen and going out a distance. If I had COVID, the COVID would be going out. So it's aerosol spread, invisible and aerosol spread. Three, I could have it and not know that I had it. I could be an asymptomatic carrier, never had any symptoms, but spreading it generously. So this is all bad. Number 4, those to whom I spread it could catch it, and they could become asymptomatic spreaders, or they could get it, get sick, recover, or they could get it, get sick, and die. We don't know which will be the direction any person will take. You can't assume because you're young that you'll overcome it. No, that's been disproven. Can't assume that because you're a child, you'll overcome it. Disproven. Can't be assumed that because you're old and have comorbidities that you will automatically die. No, but most likely. So who gets it, when they get it, and what will happen with them, we don't know. So see all of these unknowns dealing with this. The next one is that it affects minorities, people of color more, and the most vulnerable are the most susceptible for many reasons, and we could go into that. So this is a bad aspect of this virus. Another aspect is that the virus has become politicized. Oh, you're funny. Rather than being left in the medical reason or in the medical zone or clinically dealt with only, it's become politicized. It's a matter of red and blue. How you think about the virus depends on your political perspective. How that happened, we all know, but that's not good. The next issue regarding this were the government missteps. If initial steps were taken when the virus was early on, and we clamped down like other countries, we would be in a much better situation than we are now. But the missteps initially and continually have allowed us to come to where we are, number 1 in the world in the number of cases, rising faster almost than anyone else, the number of hospitalizations and the number of deaths. We stand out. And then there's the bad vaccine rollout.
What?
We're expecting the vaccine to be rolled out as soon as it was available and equitably according to the plan, but that didn't happen. Right now, they're asking for the vaccine all over the country, and there's nothing but vaccine shortages. And we can't forget our and many other people of color vaccine hesitancy. And it's understandable. It's understandable. We have historically been mistreated in terms of the healthcare and the exploitation that we've undergone at the hands of medical experimentation in this country. It's well documented. Also well documented are the healthcare disparities that still exist between our healthcare and those that are received by white citizens. There's a big difference in the outcomes. There's a big difference in the availability. There's a big difference in the treatment that we received. All of these things are well known and contribute to the reluctance that our people have of believing the information and taking the vaccine. And that is not good. There can be times when our fears can be weaponized against us. So for all of these reasons, this virus, to the level of importance that it has, and it's actually gone beyond this because of the social impact that it has had, which has been considerable. It's the reason why we're at home now. Many of us have lost jobs. The government is in disarray to a great extent with increased polarization. So this virus has had a tremendous social impact. What's been the total of all of this? We now have about 4,300 deaths per day. 4,000 people are dying daily. The number of deaths in the country totally is about 440,000 deaths have occurred since COVID. And I've heard that this is greater than what we had people lost in World War II. And it's approaching 500,000 or 500,000 people. This is incredible. Our hospitals right now many of them are being overrun, those in areas of hotspots. The latest data shows that there's been a slight plateauing, which we thank Allah for, which we've been looking for. But we have concerns because we have also discovered in our country the new mutants of the virus. The ones from the UK, the ones from South Africa, the ones from Brazil. These are now being picked up in various places in our country, and those that have them have no travel history and have not contacted one another. What does that mean? That means that it is far greater spread in our country than that would indicate. What's the significance of that? The significance, and you have to think in viral time. You know, it's in medicine, you have to think in the time of what you're dealing with. You know, bone time is longer, viral time is longer, you know, burn time is quick, instant. You know, what entity are you dealing with? So in viral time, you know, you talk about weeks. You know, if you're exposed to the virus, it may take 5 to 7 days while it incubates and replicates, and before you really start getting symptoms. And then how long you have to remain quarantined, and how long after you might shed virus. All of these is in terms of weeks. So if these isolated cases are picked up now, that means in weeks, they're in competition with one another. They are out there seeing who can spread the fastest. And it's interesting when we look at this pandemic from the viral point of view, because this is a point of view we don't look at very often. How are things seen from the way the virus looks at it? And see, the virus, not to be sidetracked too much, but yeah, the next article in Muslim Journal will be on this, inshallah. See, the virus is only concerned about survival. It doesn't care who or what or why, politics, color, nothing does it care about. It is concerned only about its survival. So when it develops a new mutation, and this is normal life for a virus, is to sit there and mutate. You know, different things about it changes. Most of the mutations have no consequence, overlooked, no meaning. But every now and then, a mutation that occurs in the virus gives it some selective advantage. It says, I can overcome some barriers faster than I could before. Well, this is wonderful from the virus point of view. It can get around some vaccines or medicines or treatments that used to stop it. So the virus sees like, whoa, this is good for me. It takes advantage of that mutation. It means I can run faster, I can adapt better, I can move from host to host better than my neighbors. So what happens? That virus continues to do that. That virus gets out there and says, bring it on. So that it keeps going faster and faster and faster, replicating. And before you know it, that particular virus with that particular mutant strain becomes a dominant strain of virus. This is what's happening in our country right now. And if this is not just happening in our country, it's happening everywhere in the world where there are still big pools of viruses. This is why nobody's safe unless everybody is safe. If there are left big pools of virus, they're not sitting there just hanging out. No, they're sitting there mutating, seeing who's going to come up with the best variation that will make them the winner. So it's important when you fight viruses, you got to crush them all at once. Knock them all out. Make it difficult for the virus to spread, replicate, go from host to host, land on things and be transmitted. We just gave you the CDC guidelines. Because the virus is not going to be a good fella. He is sly, slithery, sneaky, and deadly. So he's seeing what he can do to come back and get you. What does this mean? It means, number one, that we realize that we are in a battle with an enemy that's invisible, that's sly, crafty, and that he has to be crushed. Because if he's left to go, he will find a steady state. What do we mean by that? We mean that he will become endemic. Like we have the cold and flu viruses that come around all of the time. We just get used to them. If we don't manage COVID, the coronavirus, fully, we will get to a state where he is also, or this virus has achieved a sort of steady state or endemic, which means that we have to just learn to live with it. And what that means for us medically, socially, economically, and everything. So right now, the battle is raging. And this is why, because we don't feel like we're in a battle. We feel like we're being imposed upon. Many Americans, they trying to make us wear masks. The funny thing here in Wisconsin, the governor Evers made a statewide mask mandate, and the Republicans voted to overrule it. They don't want to have masks imposed on them. That is until they learn from the federal government that if they don't accept that, they weren't going to get the $50 million earmarked for this state from the federal government. Then they changed. This is how this battle has become politicized. And that's to no one's benefit. Because the virus, as we said, does not care. He doesn't want a mask mandate either. He wants easy transmission. Okay? So, see how we're running. How do we deal? How do we deal with this in the best way as individuals and families? We have recommended, the Muslim Health Consortium has recommended that each family develop a family toolbox. And the toolbox is two aspects to it. One is physical, and the other is sort of a mental space. The things that each family should have in the toolbox are mask, cleansing solutions. It should have in the toolbox thermometers. It should have in there any plastics necessary to quarantine portions of the house. These are the physical things. Mentally in the toolbox are naturally the idea of social spacing, frequent hand washing, avoiding crowds. That's up there in the toolbox. Also in the toolbox is your family household quarantine plan. If a family member came down with COVID, would you know or have thought beforehand of where in the house they would be isolated? Would they have a separate bathroom? Would they have separate dishes? Would they have separate utensils? Was it necessary to put plastic over an area to keep that area isolated and use duct tape? Would they have a separate entrance? Is there ventilation in that area? Could the window be left open? All of these things are considered in the household quarantine plan. Also in the toolbox should have a plan for a new dietary plan. And the diet plan should have all of those things in it, or many of them, that help enhance the immune system. And specifically, vitamins D, A, C, E, magnesium, zinc, all of these things should be in your dietary plan. And it's not just to say that, oh, I'm eating all of those things already, but write a new diet to make sure that you go out of your way to include these things. Many of us now have dietary deficiencies, especially vitamin D, and there's a reason for that. But the immune system is very much dependent on vitamin D. If you have less, you're more vulnerable. So we should have a dietary plan to include all of these things. And there's a lot of foods that we could run through that are listed, oily fish and fresh vegetables and, your nutritionals. They are very important. I take a number of nutritionals, okay? I would recommend it. And that's been a big change from when I was in medical school. At that time, none of us back then recommended even taking extra vitamins. But there's been a sea change in that, okay? So we recommend nutritionals and even probiotics for the gut health is very important. So also in your toolbox, you should have a exercise plan, a family exercise plan. These are not imaginary. You should document how much you're exercising. If you're in the house, you can get in front of the television and do some exercises, strengthening, calisthenics, weight resistance exercises. The exercises are very important, okay? They help build your immune system along with your sleep, water, stress management, keep up your prayers. All of these things enhance your immune system. Exercise, especially outside where you can get sunshine. That's very important. Also in your plan, should have what if you, the management of yourself or a family member at home with COVID. What do you do? What medications do you take? What do you look for? A lot of times the hospitals are so busy, they just tell you to go home and treat it like the flu. But if you get short of breath, come back. I've heard that so many times, and I could see that might happen. So it should have the plan for what are you going to use if someone in your family or yourself catches COVID. You're going to be quarantined in the area that you already have outlined, but what else are you going to use for the diarrhea, for the headaches, for the loss of taste and smell, for the fever, for the abdominal pain, body aches, for the sputum production. All of these things, for the most part, are treated with over-the-counter medications, expectorants to loosen up the secretions, positions that you use to help mobilize the secretions, avoid sleeping on your back, okay? Sleep on your side or on your stomach. On the stomach is better, okay? You don't want the secretions to accumulate in the lower parts of the lung and lead to pneumonias. So if the secretions become excess and you become short of breath, that's one of the signs that you look for to return to the hospital. What are the things that you look for that tells you that treatment of the individual is beyond what you should do at home? They are shortness of breath. If the patient becomes dusky, sort of bluish or darkened around the lips or tongue or anything like that, may indicate poor oxygenation. Get to the hospital. Any chest pain or discomfort or heaviness, get to the hospital. Difficulty in waking the individual up, get to the hospital. And definitely any signs indicating a loss of function, stroke, weakness, difficulty walking, get to the hospital. These are symptoms that are important to note and to say that I need professional care, or that person needs professional care. Okay. Also, we're recommending that, which we're developing, that you have a laminated card that on that card are medications that your doctor should explain to you. Are you eligible to get ivermectin, okay, and monoclonal antibodies? This is what the president received, and my son received them too when he and his family members caught COVID in the Mayo Clinic system. It was amazing. He had symptoms, and they received monoclonal antibodies as outpatients, and within a day or so, they were asymptomatic, just like the president and those in his staff. They work, okay? And these medicines are, in some hospitals, stockpiled. And the fact of the matter is, if these new strains of viruses continue to go around, it may neutralize some of these monoclonal antibodies. So, we have to see all of this. This is all right at that cutting edge. We don't know yet and don't have the studies, but you want to let the doctor know that you know about these treatments being available, and you don't want him to leave you in any stack heap over there. And they don't know, and I'm not going to say. Believe me, this sort of thing happens. So if you go to the hospital, that same card should have inpatient medications on it. That can I receive these medications? Basically, ivermectin and the monoclonal antibodies, dexamethasone, Regeneron, and these medications. All of us, to our dismay, watched that sister, Dr. Moore in Indianapolis, where she took the video of herself asking for medications, which she knew about as a doctor, and failed to get them, complaining of symptoms that she was having that any, in my opinion, doctor should have followed up and saw after they finally did the x-ray that she had infiltrates and pneumonia. That was inexcusable, in my opinion. So we don't want to fall in that category. That medicines are available, and we're not accessing them. So let me speed up so we can leave enough for questions. So your family toolbox has all of those things. If you go in the hospital, if you stay at home, your plans ahead of time, uh, your important numbers, and how you change your diet, how you strengthen yourself spiritually, inshallah, and all of that's in there. The vaccine hesitancy, I'm going to mention quickly. As we said, we understand it. It's logical. It's just like if you touch a stove and you got burnt, you're reluctant to touch that stove again. That goes back down to protozoa and animals and everybody. We definitely have that same response. We've been burnt by the system. But we can see people dying. There is a limit to being controlled by our fears. There is a time to let it go. People are rushing to get the vaccine now. They will bump you out of the way to get in your place to take the vaccine. And that's at this point. If and as things get worse, it will become worse than that. We saw on the news recently that the refrigerator in California went bad and 1,600 doses of vaccine were available. They gave the word and people were lined up everywhere. And alhamdulillah, they didn't lose any because those people were quick to respond and they saved that. So if you are still hesitant regarding the vaccine, reconsider. It will be good for yourself, your family, and the community, because you will contribute to the pool of antibodies which we are trying to develop, which will make it difficult for the vaccine to make it in the human family. That everywhere he turns, barriers are put up against him. But if there are pockets that he can go to easily that don't have those same barriers, that's where the virus will go. That's how it works. Quickly, we have the vaccines out now, the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. They are very effective for our current coronavirus. They are less effective against these new mutant strains, but still effective to an extent. The new vaccine coming out by right now, it's just completed its stage 3 trials and is applying for emergency use authorization of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which has the benefit of being 1-dose vaccine and doesn't require the extreme refrigeration that the other vaccines do. So this is to an extent is a game changer. It, however, is less effective than they are with the 2 shots. They were 94 and 95% effective. It in the US goes down to 72% effective, but that's with 1 shot. The other virus vaccines with 1 shot go down to 50% effectiveness. So our team is looking at the data carefully once it's fully released. We know that this vaccine, Johnson & Johnson, was tested in 8 different countries in Latin America and Africa, I believe. I have to check this. This is the information. They did use 44,000 volunteers for testing the vaccine. We don't know what percent of them were Black African Americans. The other vaccines had about 10% of the volunteers in there. So it's a vaccine that's somewhat different than the messenger RNA vaccines that were in use now. It's a DNA vaccine, and the idea of it is they use a cold virus, which has been sort of attenuated to introduce the vaccine into the cell. It doesn't go into or change the DNA, but it does make particles that are immunogenic, that stimulates the antibodies or immune system to be sensitive to the virus whenever it should attack. So we're getting more information on that now. This is just a preliminary review of that. So our team is just getting into it in depth. Finally, before we to all of this is a great spiritual dimension. All of what we ran through were so many levels and aspects of it, which we can find in scripture, in Quran, from the unseen to believing, to being tested, to doing things that, may not impact you, but impact others. Selfishness, all of these different aspects could be discussed when we talk about COVID. And in my opinion, Allah is testing us with COVID. Testing our commitment to this democracy, to truth, to science, and a lot is at stake. This is a test that we don't want to fail, because failure is not an option. So with that, alhamdulillah, I will stop talking so much and open it up for any questions that we hope we can answer for you.
Alhamdulillah, what a wealth of information. I tried to take some notes in the chat, but I know you gave us a lot to think about. We have a few questions in the chat that we can start with, and then folks can certainly unmute their mics and answer questions directly. One of the first ones we have from Shamsuddin is, are there any results of studies on the aluminum particles effect of bypassing the blood-brain barrier with regard to the COVID vaccine or any other vaccine for that matter?
Aluminum particles? I wasn't aware that aluminum was in it. I'll have to check that.
I'm going down. So there's a question. It was a direct one to me for you to. Can you demystify the 5G connectivity being a causative factor for the vaccine as an intended result?
The 5G, explain that again.
So I don't know if you can unmute yourself, Shams, to kind of elaborate on your question a bit. I think he's at work. I'm not sure if he's able to or not.
The effect of
the 5G
that's on the telephones affected by the virus.
Yes.
Okay. What's the basis for that? Where did that? Well, like what? Let me. Can I ask what is the evidence, or what is the basis for that, or is that an imagined conspiracy theory, or offer the evidence that has some grounding.
Well, you know what? I don't know how to ask that question better than what I gathered. I mean, I have like a few videos that I've been seeing and digging and trying to do research on it. I can send them to you, but I don't know how to better ask that question.
Okay, and
but if there is none, maybe that's the answer to my question.
Okay, no. There is none that I have heard of, nothing along those lines that I have seen, any basis for that at all.
Okay.
And let me, this is a good moment. We have on the Facebook, we have so many people that are coming up with so many things. It's like, like moonbeams, that hit you at a certain time of day, and depending on which vaccine you got. I mean, just anything that can come to your imagination. And to sprinkle some basic science in that, and then throw these things out there to affect people is what we're seeing. And these are new ways of giving people misinformation, false information, tying a little bit of truth into it to make it palatable. That's what we're seeing. And the other thing is, what do they do with this? If they can ball up enough of those things and fling them at us, they will get you to divert your time that could be well spent applying science and evidence, treating people, doing these things. If they could divert your time from that, many of these people will achieve their goal. The balance that people who are involved in the science have to do is how much of this has to be addressed. And what people have to do is imagine, who is that coming from? What is the purpose of that? What are their intentions? And have them present their proof. Not that there won't be some science mixed into it. I don't know if that answered the question exactly, but
You know what, it did. And I want to say this, before I heard your khutbah, and it was two very important points that you made. And one was that, what is at the center of all of this that's happening? And you said Allah is at the center of it all. And we know that, everything that happens in the life is a test. And, I just wanted to, first of all, I wanted to say thank you, because I was not over the fence in regard to taking the vaccine until I heard from you. And I appreciate a lot choosing you to help, inform us and make us more knowledgeable. I mean, because I have bought in, and I just really wanted to say thank you. I really, really, really do thank you. I was in a rough place, and I'm not anymore. Mm-hmm. So alhamdulillah, and I really, really thank you, Imam Ramadan. I had to say that.
I thank you for that. And I want to say that I, I wrote an article that showed that I had reluctance, and for many years I didn't take vaccines. You know, I didn't, and I had to look at myself and apply my own knowledge that I had to this situation. And as I wrote in the article, that I was concerned about the Tuskegee and all of the things that I saw and knew about. And when I reflected on what Imam Muhammad did in Chicago when he picked up that flag and carried it across the stage, that was a important moment that said, yes, we're here. Yes, we need to look at. Yes, we need to claim our rights. Yes, we need to look at the science. Yes, we need to stand on reality and not our fears. It was just important to me, and that changed my mind.
Alhamdulillah. You know, I think having you, Dr. Ramadan, to give us this information, I know that we were like champs. We were not just a no, we were hell no. And so, yeah, and now we're on the other side of that. So alhamdulillah, may Allah continue to reward you. In this last 5 minutes, I want to get in a few other questions from the believers. And noting that there's a link in here that Sister Amiel shared with us when you talk about making sure that you work out as part of, you know, being prepared for COVID. She gave us some things to look at to assist us with that. There's another question. You mentioned several medicines available for COVID patients. Can you name those medicines again?
Yes, they change from inpatient or outpatient. If it's outpatient, it's quercetin, ivermectin, and monoclonal antibodies as outpatients. Just have those written down and ask the doctor, would these be good for me? And as I said before, have him explain why they are or are not. That will be important for your health care. As an inpatient, his Regeneron, the monoclonal antibodies, which is similar to that. One is polyclonal, one is monoclonal. Ivermectin, which you may have heard is a drug that we use for worms or parasites. It's also used in animals. Been using it for 40 years. I used to prescribe it in pinworms. And we found that it was repurposed, and it in all stages of the treatment of COVID, it's good. In prophylaxis and post-exposure prophylaxis, and early on with symptoms, and in the hospital, and in severe cases, ivermectin is beneficial. I don't know why it's not addressed more. It should be. Therapeutics are not getting their fair share of the publicity, and they should. Also, dexamethasone, which is now sort of a standard for the cytokine storm that occurs. And is there anything else? Those are the ones that come to mind now.
Thank you for those. And thank you, Sister Amiel, for also putting them in the chat for folks to read them. Our last question in our last 2 minutes of Talim, inshallah, is kind of a two-part. One is, do you have a particular vaccine that you would recommend among those that are out? And the second is, if you have several allergies, should you be concerned about the vaccine? More specifically, allergies with weather and grass and tree. Are there concerns there that folks should be worried about?
Okay. The vaccine you should take is the first one you can get, whichever. That's what, if as soon as I can get it, it'll be whichever one. Okay, they're both, the two that are out there are pretty equivalent. The big thing is the time. One is 3 weeks and the other is 4 weeks. as to when you should get the second shot. You know, or if you don't get those in the one shot, Johnson & Johnson. And in terms of the allergies, if you have had a reaction to vaccines in the past, then you shouldn't get it. Even if you have had, that we watch you for a while after you receive the vaccine to make sure you don't have any anaphylactic reactions. But those routine medicine allergies and food allergies and all, those are not stop you from getting the vaccine. Just inform the person that's giving you that, and they'll watch you longer, and they should have the medicine on hand to treat you. But you don't want to miss it for those. You're okay to take it.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Thumma alhamdulillah. With much appreciation and gratitude for all of your information and sharing it with us. And you know, family takes care of family, so taking care of us. And for all the believers that are here with us today, may Allah guide us. May Allah lead us to the path that is pleasing to Him. May Allah give us the strength and the resilience to continue to fight COVID and all the things that come with it. And that concludes our Talim for today. May you all have a blessed and beautiful week.
Ameen.
Ameen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All.
All right.